There's a truth few dare to face. Not everyone who hates you will show it. The most dangerous person isn't the one who speaks ill of you, but the one who smiles at you daily, asks about your well-being, even offers help, all while quietly wishing you'd disappear. This is more than envy. It's intent masked as kindness. We're often taught to trust others, to open our hearts, and to stay positive, but without clarity, that very kindness becomes the easiest door for enemies to walk through. This video doesn't aim to spread fear. It serves as a wake-up call, a warning about subtle dangers that most overlook until it's too late. Stoicism teaches us to see clearly, to recognize true threats, and to act with reason. In the next section, you'll discover 5 signs that someone doesn't just hate you, they may want you gone for good. 1. The silent observer. Some people enter your life like shadows. They make no noise, don't strike up conversations, seek no friendship, and express no clear emotion. Yet you know they're there. Through a passing glance in the hallway, a silent like on social media, or the frequent coincidences of running into them where you often go. But you can't recall any real connection. They were never truly with you, but never really left either. Their presence is so faint it's easy to ignore, and that's exactly what makes them dangerous. In a world obsessed with self-expression, the quiet ones are sometimes the most deliberate. They don't engage because they don't need to. Their goal isn't connection, it's collection. They ask no questions, yet they hold the answers. They don't need your stories. They've been watching. These are not merely curious individuals. They are recording your routines, your usual stops, your attire, your walk, even subtle shifts in your daily patterns. This isn't by accident. It's a cold, calculated intent, cloaked in silence and courtesy. The real threat lies in how easily we share unconsciously. What you post, morning coffee, weekend check-ins, even moods, all become data. You don't notice, but someone is watching, piecing those fragments into a full picture of your life. And when someone understands your habits better than you do, you're already at a disadvantage without realizing it. Some may think, if they're only observing, what's the harm? But remember, every attack begins with information. Every predator must study its prey. To watch without interacting gives them a map of your weaknesses while keeping their motives hidden. They aren't rash. They are patient. And that patience is terrifying. From a Stoic lens, Epictetus once said, "The wise man observes not only others, but also his own unease." When someone makes you feel uncomfortable without any clear wrongdoing, don't dismiss that feeling. Don't let politeness or the thought of being too sensitive dull your instincts. That unease is your inner wisdom knocking. When someone repeatedly appears without conflict or contribution, that's not someone to overlook. That's someone you must observe in return, not with fear, but with clarity and boundaries. In Stoicism, peace doesn't come from avoiding conflict, but from confronting reality. And sometimes, reality is quiet, polite, and ordinary, yet conceals silent threats, waiting for your unawareness. The most dangerous person isn't the stranger, it's the one you thought you knew. That vague familiarity lowers your guard, opens the door to oversharing, and blurs the line between friendly and trustworthy. They don't enter with confrontation, but with reason and restraint. The colleague who always greets you kindly, the acquaintance at social gatherings, the neighbor who offers help now and then. That familiar but distant dynamic prompts you to share before questioning. Who are they really? And why do they know so much? A harmless comment like, "You haven't been to the gym lately?" might sound casual, but behind it is observation. A question like, "Working late again?" may seem like small talk, but when it repeats at just the right moments, it's not coincidence. They don't pry, yet they know where you are, what you're doing, who you're with, what you enjoy, what you avoid. And you don't notice because they're always smiling, always normal. But Stoicism teaches, nothing is normal if it unsettles your mind. The danger is that once someone builds a mask of familiarity, they no longer need to appear threatening. Their intrusion blends in with your comfort. You assume they know your bank because they glanced at your ATM, not because they watched your every move. You think they remember your routine due to a good memory, not because they've been tracking it. Familiarity creates the illusion that the sharing is your choice, when in fact you're losing privacy unconsciously. From the Stoic perspective, inner control begins with knowing who you allow into your space. No one has a right to your personal data without permission, and if they've gained it without asking, the failure isn't theirs, but your lack of boundaries. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Only when we master our own limits do we avoid becoming victims of others." In a world where anyone can know you, you must choose carefully who deserves to, because not everyone who knows you wishes you peace. Some use familiarity as a passport, not to understand you, but to claim you, too. The friendly mask. In a world where most relationships evolve gradually, some individuals enter like they've known you forever. They bypass the natural stages of friendship and step in with unnatural speed and excessive intimacy. They could be a new co-worker, a casual acquaintance, or someone you just met at an event. After only a few meetings, they know about your family, your work routine, and they begin to appear more frequently in your personal life. That swift connection often feels like care. And so you open up before you ask yourself, is this moving too fast? The risk is that this approach always wears a mask of kindness. They're quick to help when you struggle, send encouragement when you're down, and always seem to show up just when you need someone. But if you observe closely, their presence isn't random. They don't just know what you need, they seem ready for it. Their goal isn't to build, it's to infiltrate. And to do that, they exploit our most human desires, to share, to be understood, to feel accompanied. We often equate friendliness with goodness, but friendliness without time must be examined. A person who hasn't walked through your hardships but dives into your inner world likely doesn't want to stay. They want to gain control. Marcus Aurelius warned, "What comes too quickly, observe carefully. What enters your mind too easily, reassess." True closeness takes time, trial, and slow trust. When someone skips those steps in days or weeks, don't feel lucky. Feel alert. Stoicism urges us to distinguish between genuine kindness and hurried intimacy. A true friend knows depth requires experience. The masked one only needs opportunity. So when someone rushes in, pause, not to reject, but to ask, are they a companion or seeking access to your most vulnerable software? Once initial trust is built, the mask wearers go deeper into manipulation disguised as empathy. They don't just listen, they dig. They revive old wounds, hidden fears, and traumas you thought buried. They nod at the right times, sigh when you tremble, and share personal stories to create a sense of "we're the same." But behind the empathy is not understanding, it's data gathering. Piece by piece, for one aim: control. As sharing becomes routine, your defenses weaken. You believe they're the only one who truly listens. A safe space, free of judgment, and they will never trigger your suspicion. Because they too appear to open up. They share a painful childhood, a broken relationship, deep loneliness, enough to make the exchange feel mutual. But what they reveal is selective, just enough to construct a false bond. Everything you say, however, is stored, studied, a strategic archive. They don't heal you. They study how you feel so they can later lead you where they wish. This manipulation isn't loud or forceful. It works through emotional leverage. They know when you're weakest, and that's when they arrive like a savior. And when you're most suggestible. They use your words, your fears, your trust to quietly tilt your choices away from relationships, from opportunities, even from family. And the cruelest part, you believe it was your decision. They never command, they only suggest, support, and understand. From a Stoic viewpoint, this is the most insidious control, because the victim forgets they've lost control. Seneca said, "The wise man does not surrender his soul to anyone simply because they listen." Real empathy respects privacy. Strategic empathy is a disguise for infiltration. If someone makes you feel they're your only safe space, be cautious. A true friend never needs to know everything to stay. Only the manipulator wants your entire inner map, so they can use it when you're at your weakest. 3. Escalation of behavior. When someone harbors bad intentions toward you, they rarely begin with blatant or shocking actions. They don't enter your life with aggression, but rather move slowly, hidden behind seemingly harmless gestures. A joke like, "I could kill you right now," is delivered amid laughter, dismissed as a tasteless attempt at humor. A touch on the shoulder, standing too close in an elevator, or a coincidental bump in a crowded space is brushed off as clumsiness or chance. But if you pay attention, you'll see these acts are neither random nor first-time occurrences. They are the opening moves in a deliberate sequence, testing your response. And if you don't react, they proceed. The frightening part is this. Because the initial act doesn't seem serious, even you feel awkward speaking up. You reassure yourself that you're overthinking, that it was just a joke, that the contact wasn't intentional. And so, you stay silent. But the one with bad intentions is not silent. They register your reaction. They know you felt something, and they also know you said nothing. That silence is a signal for them to go further. Every small boundary you ignore becomes proof that you're adjusting to the transgression. They'll follow with another comment, sharper this time, or a more invasive gesture, longer, bolder, yet still cloaked in accident. We often value tolerance and dislike making a fuss. But in this case, tolerance becomes a shield for the wrongdoer, and silence becomes the tool that enables harm. Many people later realize the first boundary was already crossed, but they had laughed it off, and that was the mistake. Stoicism teaches, danger isn't only when the wolf bites, it's when it comes close and we fail to see it. In modern life, violence doesn't always take the form of threats or blows. It is subtle, wrapped in politeness, humor, and sometimes even false concern. So if someone repeatedly makes half-joking threats or initiates physical contact that feels uncomfortable but is always excused as accidental, pay attention. That unease within you is a kind of wisdom. And if you don't heed it, there will come a time when you can no longer distinguish between what is normal and what is off. Every unaddressed breach makes the other more confident that you won't stop them. Eventually, they'll stop hiding. And by then, what you dismissed as a joke may have been your final warning ignored. When you fail to respond to a violation, you're not just silent. You're signaling that your boundaries are movable. To decent people, silence may indicate discomfort, a gentle cue to stop. But to someone with ill intent, silence is an invitation. They don't understand kindness, they read opportunity. Every time you don't react, they gain confidence that you won't resist. So they don't stop. They go further, subtler, and more dangerous. The first move might be an inappropriate remark, but after several successful tests, they push the language into clearer innuendo. The jokes become suggestive. The compliments shift to judgments about your body. The stare turns into blatant surveillance. The accidental touch becomes intentional. The close proximity becomes an invasion of personal space. They measure your reactions. How many steps you retreat, whether your eyes show displeasure or avoidance, whether you share it with anyone. All this becomes data. And if their conclusion is that you'll remain silent, they escalate. The greater concern is that you begin to adapt. You start telling yourself it's just their personality, that maybe you're overreacting, that no one else seems to notice. So maybe it's not serious. But that's when your boundaries begin to erode, bit by bit. Eventually, you'll look back and realize someone crossed deep into your inner life because you didn't stop them at the start. You no longer remember the last time you pushed back because you stopped resisting while things still seemed small. In Stoic thought, setting boundaries is not weakness or coldness. It is a high form of self-mastery. Epictetus taught, the wise man doesn't wait for harm before building a fence. He builds it at the first sign of danger. A boundary violator doesn't need force to control you. They only need you to get used to being violated without speaking up. When you accept small intrusions, you train yourself to accept greater harm, and that person, who steps forward every time you step back, will never stop unless clearly and firmly confronted. So if someone constantly tests your limits by increasing unwanted intimacy, face it directly. Don't make excuses. Don't convince yourself it'll pass. Escalation never ends on its own. It stops when you draw a line that cannot be crossed. And sometimes a single no is enough to preserve your peace for a long journey ahead. 4. The patient predator. The true predator never enters your life looking suspicious. They aren't cold, distant, or unsettling at first. On the contrary, they are immensely likable. They understand that to go far, they don't need force or coercion, but simply to appear at the right time in the right role. The trustworthy friend. They know how to greet in the right tone, compliment at the right moment, and are especially skilled at listening. They ask for nothing, expect no attention, give generously without keeping score, and always show patience, warmth, and care. They do nothing wrong, which is why you have no reason to doubt them. Over time, they become the person you lean on when life is hard. They don't storm into your world. They slip in through the cracks. the moments of weakness, loneliness, or emotional fatigue. And they were always there. At the right time, in the right place, with the right gesture. When you need to talk, they listen. When you need help, they act. They craft the image of someone flawless, trustworthy, calm, non-judgmental, and always available. And so you start letting them deeper into your life. What makes this type of person dangerous isn't a single act, but the perfection of their performance. They don't just play the part of a good person, they live it daily. No one around you suspects them because everything they do is courteous, moral, and proper. They are the kind of person everyone would want in their life. And you, even if hesitant at first, slowly lower your defenses. You share personal stories, relationship details, fears, even secrets you've never told anyone. They don't pry. They simply know how to make you speak. No pressure, just the kind of presence that invites trust. It's precisely their lack of coercion that becomes their greatest power. Stoicism warns us, what has no edges, no boundaries, no flaws, must be observed more carefully. Not because it's good, but because it's too perfect to be true. Seneca once said, "The wise man does not hand over his soul to someone simply because they've never done wrong." A truly kind person doesn't need to be flawless. They only need to be consistent in values and conduct. But the one who is too perfect, too agreeable, too willing, may not be here to stay. They're here to observe, to enter, to wait. And when they've gathered enough about you, they'll know precisely where to strike when the time comes. So don't be fooled by a spotless image. Pay attention to what they don't say, the boundaries they don't respect, and especially their uncanny ability to always be there, for no clear reason. In this world, not everyone is here to be your friend. Some come to play the role, until the role is no longer needed. The patient predator doesn't act while you still harbor suspicion. They don't rush, don't make sudden moves that would alarm your defenses. They know the value of time, and they are willing to wait. They wait until your guard is gone, until you not only trust them, but rely on them, emotionally, mentally, situationally. They can stay silent for months, even years, playing the good friend, the model co-worker, the cherished confidant, just waiting for the moment you let go of that final shred of vigilance. When you're exhausted, grieving, or facing a critical life crossroads, that's when they act. Their action may not be open violence or immediate betrayal. It could be a seemingly harmless proposal that oversteps a line, a private story they weaponize in your work or social circles, or the quiet release of a secret when you're at your most vulnerable. And you won't know how it happened because you trusted them. You were so used to their presence that you never imagined they could be the source of harm. Even when signs appear, you might defend them, because you don't want to believe someone who cared for you could cause you pain. And that's their nature. They don't use force. They use timing. They don't threaten. They wait for you to take off your armor. They don't break in. They wait for you to open the door. That's why the pain isn't just from what they did, but from what you regret, for letting them in so deep, for so long, without drawing the line. Stoic philosophy holds this principle. Be cautious even when danger isn't obvious. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Collapse rarely comes suddenly. It's born of small compromises made in silence." When you grow used to someone's presence without questioning why, when you stop being alert because they're too kind, that's when you must look again. Not with suspicion, but with calm awareness. A healthy relationship doesn't demand blind trust or full surrender. A truly good person will never exploit your weakness to gain control. Only a predator waits for your armor to fall, your guard to drop, and strikes when resistance is gone. And when that moment comes, the price isn't just pain, it's a lingering doubt, even toward the genuinely good that may come after. 5. The strategy of division. One of the most ruthless strategies used by those who seek to destroy you is not to attack you directly, but to strike at those who stand behind you. They don't go after you. They go after the trust others place in you. They understand that human beings rely on support networks. People you trust, people who trust you, relationships that help you remain grounded when facing adversity. And if they can fracture those relationships, you will gradually weaken without realizing it. They begin with whispers, subtle but intentional, spoken during conversations that seem harmless. He's been acting kind of different lately, hasn't he? I'm not certain, but something about him makes me uneasy. I say this out of concern, but I've heard recently, they don't need to lie outright. Sometimes a seed of doubt is enough. Trust rarely collapses from a single blow. It cracks under the weight of tiny suspicions that build over time. Once others begin questioning you, they start to view your behavior through a distorted lens. Your silence becomes distance. Your exhaustion is seen as attitude. Your sincerity is mistaken for manipulation. And the cruel truth is, you've done nothing wrong, yet everything around you begins to shift. People who once trusted you now keep their distance. Those who used to ask how you are now reply with cold brevity. You don't understand what's happening, but you feel clearly that your circle is slowly breaking apart. And what about the one planting the doubt? They don't stay out of it. They pretend to be neutral observers, even sympathetic allies. When you begin to feel misunderstood, they're the first to say, "I feel bad for you too." They make you believe they're on your side, while they're the ones who pave the way for your isolation. This is sophisticated psychological manipulation. The person who destroys your relationships is also the one who consoles you through their collapse. They don't need you to break all at once. They only need you to feel alone, to believe no one's listening, and to begin wondering, maybe the problem is me. In Stoic thought, Epictetus once warned, the wise man not only values his friends, but also values the truth in what he hears. Because when others are manipulated by clever lies, you don't just lose a relationship, you lose a part of your inner stability. Isolation doesn't begin with action, it begins with words. And once your support system has been pierced by seeds of doubt, you're left to face the storm alone, exactly as they intended. As your support circle weakens under carefully planted suspicions, the manipulator doesn't stop at damaging your external connections. They move to the next phase, making you question yourself. They create subtle, calculated tensions so you feel things are off balance, yet can't identify why. Unexpected misunderstandings appear between you and someone close. Strange rumors about you circulate at work. A decision you never made somehow becomes the reason others grow distant. Nothing is dramatic, but it is relentless and draining, leaving you stuck in constant doubt. What did I do wrong? While you're scrambling to explain these rifts, the manipulator remains the calm outsider, the one who gets it and offers to share the burden with you. They're always conveniently present to listen, offering vague reflections like, maybe you unknowingly hurt someone, or I'm not sure, but it seems like others may have misunderstood something. It's these ambiguous words that deepen your confusion. You begin over-analyzing yourself, lose confidence in your relationships, and most importantly, you stop trusting your own instincts. Once you begin to doubt yourself, the manipulator no longer needs to act. They only need to maintain just enough chaos to keep you mentally unsteady. You grow quieter, more withdrawn, hesitant to share thoughts for fear of being misunderstood, and little by little, you retreat from the very groups that once felt safe. From there, you lose external grounding, and eventually, you surrender internal grounding as well. Their strategy of division doesn't rely on loud conflict, just subtle, repeated doubt until you enter a prolonged state of disorientation. Stoic philosophy reminds us, no one can disturb you unless you lose control of your own mind. But to maintain that control, you must know who is quietly adding fuel to the fire of doubt. And sometimes, that person won't raise their voice. They'll simply bend the truth until you no longer recognize where reality ends and manipulation begins. I don't believe everyone around us harbors malice, but I do believe not everyone who smiles at us genuinely wishes us peace. Life is vast enough to hold kind-hearted people, but dark enough to shelter those who conceal hatred beneath a gentle mask. What troubles me isn't their existence, for that is obvious, but our tendency to overlook early signs simply because they don't seem bad enough, serious enough, or because we don't want to believe that someone we were once close to could mean us harm. But it's that very hesitation that makes us ideal targets for manipulation and betrayal. I don't advocate for extreme suspicion, nor do I wish for anyone to live in fear. But I do believe in wakefulness, the kind that helps us discern between sincere kindness and calculated approach, between genuine friendship and manipulation disguised as empathy. As someone who values reason, I've learned to observe actions more than listen to words, and I'm not afraid to set boundaries, even with those who entered my life cloaked in kindness. For if peace is what I intend to preserve, then vigilance is what I must practice, not because I fear others, but because I've learned to love myself with seriousness. If today's message struck a chord within you, please like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss future content. Sometimes, a single moment of clarity about someone's true nature is enough to keep your life whole. And in a world full of disguise, clarity is the highest form of self-love. See you again in the next video.